I do believe we are live. Hello and welcome to another Sunday morning Eurorack Patch Lab, Eurorack Patch Lab. If you're joining me on the replay, thanks for joining me. This is going to be a super casual hangout this morning. We're going to be checking out the patch that I've got in the system currently, and in a few moments, we're going to pull all of these cables and we're going to be attempting to patch some dub techno today from scratch in the system. The first thing that I'm going to do is try to find the stream on my channel so that I can chat if anyone tunes in. Let's go ahead and check out what I've got in the system right now. It's going to be a chilled day today. We're starting off with a chilled groove in this system, and we're going to make another chilled groove in just a few minutes. All right. Hey, Spider already in the chat. Cool, man. Hey, Jamie, what's happening, guys? Can you guys let me know if you can hear me okay? Some options would be I can turn my voice up or down, I can turn the music up or down, or I can turn the global volume up or down. This is a patch that I've been working on the last couple days. Just some real chill techno. Levels are groovy. All right, hey Sean. Everything sounding okay? You can hear my voice okay, even when the music is really loud like this? Because I can turn the music down or my voice up or down as necessary so that we can hear everything okay. Hey, what's up, Gaz? Hey, what's up, Wall? What's up, Patrick? Thanks for joining me. We got 8 people in the chat already. It's going to be a super chilled day today. As you can hear, we've got a chilled patch in the system right now. And what we're going to be working on in a few minutes is a dub techno patch. I'm looking at about 114 BPM for the patch we're going to create. And the key of F minor. So stick around for the dub techno. It's going to be a fun one today, I think. Yeah, all right. Spider loves the dub. You know what time it is. This was a really fun groove to put together. Lots of reverb just sort of hanging over the mix based on this giant chord stab here that we'll bring in. 2, 3, 4. Or maybe not. Give it a second. I'm sort of using this chord stab in the way that I've been using a lot of the chord stabs in these sessions. It's sort of like a big downbeat stab every 8 bars to kind of keep us in sync with the grid. Hey, Redneck Samurai, thanks for joining up. It's going to be a super chill day today. We've got a chilled patch in the system currently, and when I pull all the cables, we're going to attempt to patch some dub techno from scratch today. But what I want to do is I want to show you guys, before we really get started on this today, I want to show you what I've been working on really hard these past couple of weeks in here. I'm planning on doing a live show, a live streamed live show on the channel on Halloween, and it's going to be over a 1-hour show. And I've been putting together all of the elements in the back half of the room to make this happen. I'm going to switch the camera around just a little bit so I can show you some of these stations that I've got set up. I'm attached to the camera, so the camera's attached to some stuff, so I've got to be real careful. Now I know we're going to be a little bit bright here from my lights in the back of the room, but this is only going to be for a second so I can show you guys what I've been up to. I've got the Akai Force out for this set. I've got the Roland drum pad out for this set, and some new melodic patches that I've created to be able to play along with the set. We're going to open up the set with like a big 30-minute dub techno set, live set in the Akai Force, and then we're going to explore a bunch of other tempos and genres and styles, and we're going to jam out for over an hour and have really awesome Halloween. Over here, in this corner, I've got a station where I've got the Electron Digitact here, and I've got the Roland TR-8S. I've got the vintage Yamaha SU700 sampler out of the closet for this one. We've got the Quasi-MIDI Revolution 309, the Novation Circuit, and the Allen and Heath Zone DB2 mixer. So I've got kind of a station over here, and I've got kind of a station here with the Akai and with the drum pad. And then over here, I've got yet another station, and this one, it's got another Electron Digitact. It's got an Electron Digitone. We've got the Poly-In Tracker. We've got the MAM MB33 Retro Bass, which is like a Roland 303 clone. I got the Rat distortion pedal out for that. So there's going to be a little bit of 303 in the set. And I've got 2 Electron model samples, sampling groove boxes on top here. So I've got kind of like a track that I'm going to do on this set. I've got some stuff I'll do here, some stuff I'll do over on this setup, and then also some stuff that I'm going to do with the Akai Force. So definitely see if you can put aside some time on Saturday, Halloween. I haven't gotten my time slot yet for the show that I'm doing this for, but I'm guessing that my time slot is going to be about 1 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time. So a few hours after we do, sort of like when we do these live streams. And again, that's going to be Halloween. If you're following me on social media, I'm sure there's going to be lots of posts about the time as I get my time slot. Excuse me. It's really difficult to take a deep breath with the mic right in front of my nose here. But yeah, so I'm on Facebook as Electronic Sounds. I'm on Instagram as Electronic Sounds. I'm on Twitter as Electronic Sounds, and here as Electronic Sounds. And I'm sure there'll be some posts on my other social media as to when that live show is going to be on Halloween. I've really been putting in the hours. It's going to be the first time that I'm doing over an hour live show. I really appreciate everyone joining in. It's going to be a super casual patch lab today, as we're put together some dub techno from scratch. I'm really excited because my one of the sample modules that I use is the Squarp Rample sample player. And what it is it loads 4 slots. You can load 4 different slots of samples, and it loads 16-bit mono samples. I found out yesterday that they've done a firmware upgrade on the Squarp Rample, which will actually allow me to load stereo samples for the first time. So I have the option now of loading 4 mono samples or 2 stereo samples. And that's what we're going to attempt to do today. We're going to attempt to use a stereo sample in the rample for the first time and get a really thick, lush dub techno groove happening. Although that's kind of what we've got in here right now. You guys know I love the dub. All right. I'm really excited to try this out. So I think we're going to jump right into the patching part today a little bit sooner than I would normally because I'm really anxious to test this out. I haven't actually tested the stereo sample from the rample yet, so maybe not the best idea to try this live on a live stream, but if it goes sideways and doesn't work, we'll just patch something else. We'll just roll with it. So while I'm pulling all of these cables, that can maybe take a few minutes and get a little bit tedious. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and listen to some music as I'm doing that. This is the one and only jam that I put together. Whoops. Excuse me. That I put together on the Electron Octatrack. I had the Octatrack for a very short time because NASA called and they wanted their alien tech back. I really did not gel with the Octatrack, but this is the one jam that I did with the Octatrack and it came out pretty fun. Check it out. Hope that's not too loud. Got quite a bit of cables to pull today in this last batch, so I appreciate your patience while we get these pulled. I'm gonna make a pretty big mess for the sake of time. All right, get close. 2 times. All right. 17 people joining me. All right, thanks for joining me, everyone. I hope you like dub techno because that's what we're going to work on today. Okay, sort of make sure we're in a workable state here. Okay, I think we're about ready to start patching something up here. I'm going to go ahead and open Ableton. What I like to do, especially when I'm working on headphones, is I like to run an out from the headphones out of my master mixer over here, and I run that into Ableton so that I can use the FabFilter Pro Q3 plugin and also the Isotope Total Balance Control plugin and get a visual representation of what I'm hearing and make sure that we're not sending out too much high frequencies in the mix or too much low content in the mix when I'm working on the headphones. Let's see here. The first thing I need to do is switch out the sample cards that are in the Tip Top Audio 1 sample modules. I've got two other cards here. I've got one card with clap samples on it and one card here with chord samples on it. So I'm going to need to turn the volume for you guys down so that when I click this off, it doesn't, do a big click. Hang on for 1 second here. And we're just hopefully you guys can hear me again. The system makes kind of a loud pop when I turn it on and off, so I turn the volume down so you guys don't need to deal with that there at home. Hey, Ed. Hey, Travarsi. We got Beats by Night. We got 21 people as we're starting the patching today. I appreciate you joining me. I hope you like dub techno, because that's what we're going to attempt to patch up today. We're going to start by trying to do the first stereo sample in the Squarp Rample. Maybe not the best idea for a live stream to test this out, but that's what we're going to do. I've set up a new kit in the Rample that features a stereo chords sample, like loop, at 114 beats per minute. I've set our master clock. Today we're using the Novation SL MK3 MIDI controller and sequencer to send a master clock to the system. And we're sending the clock through the system using the Poly-End Poly2 module, which is a MIDI to CV converter, which allows us to get the clock signal into the case. The first thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to take our main clock signal and patch that into a multiple so that I can take multiple clock signals and patch those out throughout the case as needed to anything that has a sequencer. Get a sip of coffee here. Take a deep breath. Okay. We're going to go ahead and let's see here. I'm going to take a signal from the multiple that we've routed our master clock into, and we're going to go ahead and route that over to the other side of the case so that I can send the clock signal to anything on this side of the case super easily as needed. And we'll start by sending our main clock signal into a clock divider, clock in. This is the Mazatron clock divider, awesome clock divider because you've got a lot of divisions. It can divide your main clock by 2, by 4, by 8, by 16, by 32, by 64, and also by 128. I think maybe the first thing actually we'll do is patch up a kick drum real fast so that we have a little bit of a rhythm to work with today. So let's do that. Sometimes it takes a few minutes before we actually get any sound going in these sessions. So if you don't have a cup of coffee and you'd like to maybe have a cup of coffee, now would be a perfect time to grab that cup of coffee. What we're going to do is we're going to take a clock signal, which is a divided by 4 version of our master clock. So our master clock is going to be 16th notes, and I'm taking a divided by 4 signal of that master clock, and we're going to use that to trigger our kick drum. So I'm going to send that trigger signal over to the Blue Lantern module's assist module. And what this is it's an envelope, a generator, and it helps us turn any oscillator into a really amazing kick drum. And that's the first thing I think we're going to do today. Okay, we're going to need to patch this. Whoops, going to need a longer cable. We'll need a way to hear this back. And out to the end. Whoop, sorry about that. That was really loud, wasn't it? Let me figure that out why it's doing that. Just adjust a couple of these settings. There we go. All right, let's get ourselves a fat kick drum, and then I can maybe set some of the level on the mixer accordingly. This Blue Lantern's Assist allows me to create all different kinds of kick drum tones and shapes. Let me try to get the camera in just a little bit. I'm attached to a bunch of things here, so pardon the flailing on the camera. But what it allows me to do is it allows me to adjust the amount of decay on the pitch for this kick drum and the amount of time that takes to happen. So we can get a really sharp kick drum. We can get a really long, beefy kick drum, like a crazy techno kick drum, right? This is out of a sine wave here. But we don't need such a monster kick drum for dub techno. We need maybe something a little more chilled out, right? Maybe that's kind of a good place to start. What we can do is we have complete control over the pitch of the kick drum by just tuning the oscillator. And we can also add a tiny little click on the transient with this effect here. Get a nice little kick drum there. All right, now we've got a rhythm to work with. Pardon while I move this again. Okay, now I'm stuck on the stand. But I really like this Blue Lantern's Assist module. I can't stress this enough. It turns any oscillator into a really, really viable, sculptable kick drum sound. So now that we've got a rhythm, and we've got, let's see here, our Mazatron clock divider going, I'm going to go ahead and take divided by 128 clock signal and see if we can use that to trigger this loop that I've got set up in the Squarp Rample. Every 8 bars, I'd like that to trigger. I'm going to have to read that again. Let's see here. Okay, so we need to take a stereo output this time from the Squarp Rample. This is going to be my first time attempting to patch this in a stereo fashion, because normally I'm used to just using 4 mono samples. So this is really exciting to get to actually use a stereo sample for the first time. Those of you who actually work with different samples and have worked with mono versus stereo samples, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. How huge the difference is in your sound when you're working with a stereo sample instead of a mono sample. Okay, I've set the Novation SL MK3 to the tempo of the loop, which is 114 beats per minute. And currently, it's syncing up and we're getting kind of a pattern happening here. trying to dial this kick drum a little bit back so that it's not quite so bombastic and boomy. I'm not looking to try to create a big techno groove, so I want the chords, rather, to be more of a focus than the kick drum. We'll adjust that as needed throughout the session here. Yes, these rack modules definitely hold their value, and I say that because I've been looking, when I'm purchasing these, I've been comparing used prices versus new prices, and I would say for the most part, yes, the modules hold their value if you need to resell them. Now, the neat thing about the Squarp Rample as a sample player is when you load samples into the slots, it by default plays those samples back in a random order. Now, I've created this 114 beats per minute F minor dub chords loop inside of Ableton, but what I did is I've got 5 subtle variations of the chord loop where they're very, very subtle. Like the turnaround will be a little bit different. There's just tiny, tiny little subtleties. So when we're triggering the sample, it's going to randomly pull any one of the 5 variations of the sample and keep it just a little bit more moving and less static in the mix. This Blue Lantern Assist module makes it really easy to just kind of spend way too much time trying to tweak your kick drum. I absolutely love this. Okay, let's see here. So our chords are, happening in time with our kick drum, but we definitely going to need some more rhythm. Let's go ahead and take this braids module from Blue Lantern Modules. This is their creation, their version rather, of the braids module from Mutable Instruments. And I really like their execution of it. It's kind of got a cyberpunk kind of a look to it, and I'm about that. So let's go ahead and see if we can't use this to patch up maybe like a Euclidean hi-hat pattern or something to that effect. What we'll do is let's use a Euclid sequencer from 2HP to create this. So we'll need to send that sequencer our master clock. And at this point, now that we're getting the sequencers involved, they definitely need to know when the downbeat is so that they can all stay in sync with each other. So I've currently got a downbeat signal already set up, a trigger, a reset rather, a trigger reset signal. I think it's a gate actually, coming out of the Novation SL MK3. And we're going to patch our reset signal into another multiple, and that way I can send as many of those different reset signals out to the sequencers as we'll need to do. So we'll put the reset signal into our Euclidean sequencer, and I'm going to stop and start our master clock here. And now our Euclidean sequencer not only is in time with our groove, but it knows when the downbeat of the groove is as well. And we're going to attempt to just use some noise here to create like a noise hi-hat rhythm. See if we can make that happen. I'm going to take an output. Whoops. Take an output from the noise module here. I'm going to run that over here. Then we'll patch that into the mixer. Out 1. Cool. That was easy enough. We can kind of tune this noise. We can mess with the timbre of that noise or the color of the noise. Make it really bright or kind of make it a lot darker. And sort of this is a benefit to using a module like this over maybe using a hi-hat sample, is that we can run some modulation into this so that we've got some movement in our sound, like some slow, subtle movement on the way that this hi-hat sound is. We can maybe make it like shift a little in the mix, you know, with some subtle automation. Let's go ahead and do that. Hey, Beats by Night, good to see you here. Hey, 24 people hanging out. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. All right. Let's go ahead and make this hi-hat sound what we're using. It's basically just like a white noise kind of a thing. But let's make it a little bit shorter. If I go in and I change the decay on this, I could bring it back a little bit more. Make it a little bit of a tighter sound. But it's real static, you know? There's nothing moving about it. It's just ticking away there. So I like to add as much modulation as I can possibly get away with, especially right at the beginning of a session that you're building. If I take the time now to add a little bit of that special sauce, it really helps the final product. What let's do is let's take an LFO. Let's take an LFO from the DivKid Oct module, which is 8 triangle waveform LFOs that are not synced to tempo. You can't sync these to tempo, so they have kind of a sort of a humanistic vibe to them if you're using them to modulate things in your sessions. And I think that could be something useful for dub techno especially. So I'm running the LFO into an attenuator so that, and if we look at an LFO by default, I'm making a sine wave, but if we look at an LFO by default, that's a triangle. It's gonna, you know, go the full width of that LFO and then back down again. But if we run it into an attenuator, I can make it as small as we want. So it's just moving a little bit, or that it's moving the full range of that LFO. Attenuator. Gonna need a longer cable for this. So the hi-hat's not moving at all yet. It's just static, just ticking away there. But if I run this LFO into the color of the noise and I turn up the attenuator, now if we listen ever so carefully, the hi-hat is starting to change and evolve very slowly, and very subtly. We can maybe make that a little less subtle by turning up the range of the LFO on the attenuator so that we can hear that it's moving a little bit more. And what let's do is let's do that same type of thing again, but instead of modulating the color, let's modulate the timbre of this sound so that we've got two different controls, both sort of modulating and kind of sweeping and moving this sound around. I'm going to run that LFO again into our attenuator so that I can control the range of movement that the LFO is sending to our module. I'm going to take it out from the attenuator into the timbre modulation. Now our hi-hat is doing a lot of moving. It's very slow and it's very subtle, but instead of staying exactly the same in the color and in the timbre, it's sort of moving and evolving the whole time. And as we start adding more elements to this mix, if we can get those elements to be modulated as well and keep everything kind of moving and alive, that's really when the groove starts shining. I'm really liking being able to use this stereo sample in the rample like this for the chord stab. We're losing 2 sample slots, so instead of 4 samples, we would only be able to load either 1 stereo sample and 2 mono samples, or 2 stereo samples. What I've got currently is I've got the 5 variations of the chord loop, and then I've also got 2 mono samples that we can use to add here. I've got a 909 ride in the 3rd slot, and I've got some random mouth percussion in the last slot. 6 different mouth percussion samples that when triggered will play back randomly. If you caught last week's stream, it's the same mouth percussion samples that I used in that stream. WMD Devices, they're a module making company, and they do a live stream show once a month. I tuned into that live stream show and trimmed out just a little section of Alex from WMD talking to an artist named Jinx. And anytime somebody made a little like mouth click with their voice, like accidentally, I sampled that, trimmed it out and normalized it. So we're going to be able to use these mouth percussion sounds in this groove today as well, using the rample. Okay, so we've got this hi-hat moving here, but it's not doing anything other than just 16th notes. We're using a Euclidean sequencer to trigger it, and maybe we want a more evolving pattern. In fact, if I turn the amount, okay, this is how a Euclidean sequencer works, right? You can set it to anywhere from 1 to 16 steps. You've got 16 steps in a measure. So if I set it to maybe like 9 steps in the pattern, it's going to start doing polyrhythms and whatnot, which means that, on the 10th beat, it's going to start repeating that pattern rather than playing for a full measure each time. And depending on how many of the steps you choose, you can get like, say just 3 steps only or 4 or 5 steps and get these really interesting syncopated rhythms. What we're going to do is we're going to attempt to modulate the amount of steps that this sequencer is sending out so that our pattern is a random and evolving pattern that's triggering these hi-hat sounds. Let's see if we can make that happen, shall we? I believe if we use a sample and hold signal into the sequencer, we can achieve this. So what I'll do is I'll take our main clock signal, and we're going to run that into a sample and hold module so that we can get it at the same tempo as the groove that we're working with. So I'm going to run our clock signal into the random step module from DivKit. So now it's running in time with our groove. And what let's do is we'll take an out from this, and we're going to run that in to the amount of steps that this module is sending out. It's not really giving me what I'm hoping for yet. What I want is I want the hi-hat pattern to sort of be evolving and maybe unexpected. I don't think that's the right word, but not the same pattern each time. More just grooving and flowing and kind of a natural sound. Because we've got some modulation happening on it so that the timbre and the color is moving. If the pattern is shifting and not always playing the exact same pattern, then the groove becomes a little bit more organic, I would say. Perfect. The hi-hat is definitely changing and changing just a little bit randomly. Very nice. Now, to pin down the rhythm, whenever I have something that's creating a random element of the mix, I find it's good to have some things that are not changing, that are very static. And that way the whole mix still has a really solid feel to it that you can, really hone in on. What let's do is let's see if we can't bring in this 909 ride that I've got in the rample and maybe bring that in on the upbeats of this pattern to anchor down our rhythm. Cyrus Rex. Okay, I will. Cool, man. Thanks for the tip. We got Stipple. Yeah, unfortunately, this is, I don't have a way to modulate the decay on these hi-hats currently because they're coming out of the Blue Lantern modules braids module. It's the Blue Lantern module's version of the Mutable Instruments braids. And I'm using the built-in VCA of this module. So the decay is something that I go into the menu and adjust. I don't actually have a setting to adjust the decay in real time. The way to get around that would be to not use the VCA inside of this module and run it into an envelope that I would be able to adjust the release time. And that would definitely be awesome. And I appreciate the tip as well. Definitely. I want to encourage you guys to ask any questions during the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. If I miss your question, please feel free to ask it again. And I will also dedicate a little time at the end of these sessions to answering any questions that I may have missed along the way. Let's go ahead and use a Mazatron Golden Shower sequencer to sequence the ride cymbal. This is absolutely my favorite sequencer so far in the Eurorack world. It's the Mazatron Golden Shower. I have 4 of these sequencers here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and send it our master clock. It's also going to need a reset signal so that it knows when the downbeat is. So I'm going to go ahead and patch in our reset signal. I'll stop and start our clock, and that way our module knows when the downbeat is. 2, 3, yep, 1, 2. The Golden Showers are an 8-step trigger sequencer that allows you to dial in any combination of 8 steps that you want. I really love these sequencers, and I'm probably going to show these a little bit in detail every week because I'm really about it, and I want to share this with you guys. We've got a knob here, and as I roll the knob, the sequencer lights up the amount of steps that you're going to trigger on the right hand side. So I can roll it all the way up to the top and trigger 8th notes or 16th notes, or 256 different combinations of how those 8 notes put together. Any possible combination of how they come together as well. This is something really great for changing patterns in real time or controlling envelopes in your system. Get the camera back up a little bit. Okay, and we're going to use this to trigger the ride cymbal. And what I want to do is I just want like an offbeat ride. So let me go ahead and see if I can't dial in the pattern that I'm hearing in my head here. I think it's this right here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take an output of the sequencer. We're going to try to sequence this ride cymbal with it. So I'm going to plug it into the gate of the rample. And then we just need a way to route this ride cymbal out to a mixer so that we can hear it. Let's go ahead and route that here. All right. And I'm just using this to get kind of an upbeat rhythm, like maybe what an open hi-hat would do. And because our hi-hat is evolving and changing, having this ride not change and just kind of help the rhythm stay steady is definitely something that I think is a good thing. What let's do is see if we can't tune this sample to our mix. That sounds pretty nice. This is kind of where the visual aspects will come into play. That, like, for instance, if the ride sample was maybe way too loud and I'm wearing headphones, so maybe I didn't notice, the visual here would let me know that I was pushing way too much high-frequency content, or maybe not enough high-frequency content. Can you guys hear that ride okay at home? Oh, that head-mounted GoPro would be awesome, Ed. Yeah. Hey, Wave Mutator, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We're just doing some really, really casual dub techno patching today. For those of you who missed the beginning of this, this is the first time that I'm trying the new firmware in the Squarp Rample sample player, and we're actually triggering a stereo loop today. I made a dub chords loop inside of Ableton, and then I made a few different variations of that loop. The Squarp Rample allows us to trigger and cycle through those randomly. Whenever it gets a trigger signal, it'll pick one of those, I think it's 5 different chord loops that I've put together in that slot. But this is the first time that I'm using the Squarp Rample to play back a stereo sample. The new firmware update has allowed that, and I'm really, really excited about it. Just tweaking our kick drum a little bit more as we got a few more elements into the mix. How's that sounding? A little sparse still? Maybe we need to try to add a bass line at this time, huh? Yeah, well, how could we go about this? Let's see here. I think what we'll try is maybe we'll try to get the Lifeforms SV1B semi-modular into the mix. If I move the camera just a little bit here, I'm going to try to use the Novation sequencer to get something happening there. And what we can do let's go ahead and plug this in, shall we, so we can hear it. Kind of a tight fit there. Alright, now I just need to find out what MIDI channel this is set to, because I don't remember. I think it might be like 1 or 13. Oh, cool. So, let's see. Okay, take that release and sustain. Down. Cool. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Cool. All right. We've got some volume coming out of the Lifeforms now. I just need to make sure that we're in tune. So what we're going to do is we'll just need to plug the output into the Mordax data tuner here, and I just need to make sure that when I press an F that we're sending out an F. So if you just give me a moment, please, I can go ahead and tune this. Listen to this while I'm doing it, I guess. Getting there, almost there. So close, almost. Actually, I'm probably going to want an octave down, right? An F2 for this. Whoop. Or maybe a C2. Yeah, that's what I want. What am I doing? C2, there we go. Perfect. Okay. So now, but that's not what I'm, okay, I got that. I screwed that up. Let me just fix that real quick. We want this to be a C instead. So close. Almost, and there we go. Okay. So we'll go ahead and now take the output here. Whoops, sorry about that. Sorry about the crackling there. Now, all right. I'm going to just play like a really simple bass line today. Let's make this, oh, I don't know, let's make it 4-bar pattern. And, going to play a really, really simple bass line today. 3, 4, 2, 3, and... Now we can see if we can maybe dial that in a little bit more. And again, this is definitely where I would use the visualizers that I've got on the screen in Ableton here to make sure that I'm not sending too much low end out, but maybe just couldn't hear it because I'm wearing headphones. Kind of dialing in the bass a little bit, pulling back the filter on it so that it's a little bit more subtle in the mix. But now we have kind of a low frequency groove happening, sort of to keep us, you know, with that forward momentum and keep the groove going. I do have the Eurorack set up on modular grid. I'm actually building I've actually got a pre-order, not a pre-order, but I've got a custom order in for a giant case. It's going to be 164 HP wide, and there's going to be 5 rows and 1 row for the 1U modules. I will definitely put a link I'm calling that case the centerpiece, because it's going to pretty much be the centerpiece of the studio when it gets here. It's being custom built. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be done. I'm trying not to think about it. It's really difficult. But what I will do is I'll put a link under this video to that case, so you can take a look at all of the individual modules that I'm using and take a look at the modules that I've picked out. I'll put that under this video. What let's do is let's take a moment sort of in the beginning of this session here to make it so we can turn these tracks on and off in real time. I'm using the DivKids mute modules here. Let me explain kind of a little bit about the setup. This rack here in the middle is just sort of, in the front rather, is just sort of a skiff that's holding all of my sequencers. And so what we're going to do is I've got these DivKid mutes modules, which will allow me to route things into them, and each one has 4 switches that will allow me to turn the tracks on and off in real time. So let's go ahead and route some things through these switches so that I can turn the tracks on and off. Let's start with the kick drum. And what we need to do is take the trigger signal that's being sent to the kick drum, and instead of sending it directly to the kick drum, we're going to send it to the mutes module instead. I'm going to take an output from the mutes module and plug that back into the trigger where our kick is going. And now I can turn the kick drum on and off with a switch. Let's do the same thing for that ride cymbal. Instead of going directly from the sequencer into the module that we're triggering, let's go ahead and take that ride cymbal, trigger, and route the trigger into the DivKid mutes module. Then I'm going to take an output from the DivKids mutes and route that into the trigger for the ride cymbal. Now I can turn the ride cymbal on and off at any time with the switch. I don't think we're going to make it so we can turn the chords on and off or the bass on and off, because they really kind of need to keep going through the, the mix. If I turn the chords or the bass off, we're going to lose a lot of the sonic content and sound a little funky maybe. But now at any time, I can turn off our percussion, the ride and the kick drum. Let's do the same thing with our noise hi-hat. Let's take our trigger, and instead of sending this trigger directly to the module, we're going to send the trigger to the DivKids mutes module, and we're going to take an output from that module into the in of our noise. Whoops, I'll take a shorter cable here. This will give us the ability to turn that noise on and off anytime we want. Cool. So we can turn the ride on and off. We can turn the noise hi-hat on and off. and we can turn the kick drum on and off. If I start routing these things through the div kit mutes in the beginning, we'll start having control over everything. And that's sort of my point, is that I'm building these patches to be able to live jam them for sure. Hey Lee, thanks for joining up. Thanks for joining up. This is a really casual patching session. I'm showing everything that I'm doing in a slow and step-by-step manner. I'm talking about why I'm doing everything that I'm doing as well, so that it's as beginner-friendly as I can make it. Again, anyone please feel free to ask any music-related questions as we move through the session. Turn this bass down maybe a little. I can see on the tonal balance control here that I'm sending quite a bit of low end. So what I'll do is turn the volume on that bass down just a little bit. Take a look at the volumes on my mixer there. See if they're about where I had them when I set the level to begin with today. That's better. Change that pitch on the ride. Just bring it up a tiny little bit more. We're looking pretty good spectrally. All right. Cool. What I've got in the fourth slot of the Squarp Rample sample player is I've got those mouth percussion samples. I think there's 6 of those, and they're going to trigger back randomly. Let's definitely get some mouth percussion into this and see what that sounds like. Let's use another golden shower sequencer from Mazatron to sequence this. And what we need to do is we need to send the sequencer first our main clock signal, and then we need to send it that reset command so that it knows when the downbeat is. And now if I just stop and start the clock, we've got both of these Mazatron golden showers completely in sync. Let me zoom in so that I can show you what I'm talking about. I know I mentioned the sync a lot, and that's a really big part of my workflow. And what I've had to really work on learning is getting all of these modules in sync and to play together. Here we're looking at the 2 sequencers, and if you look, they're starting at the downbeat at the exact same time. So they're really in sync with each other. In fact, if I try to offset them by resetting one of those manually, and letting them be off for a moment, our reset signal will actually snap those back every 8 bars as it's sending the reset signal. So here they're off. Still off. Wait for that reset signal. And there it was. And here we have the sequencers completely in time with each other again and knowing when the downbeat is. And that's why I'm always sending all of the sequencers, not only the clock signal, but also the reset signal. I can't stress that enough. Cool. So let's just make a pattern on the golden shower to start off with that just plays all 16th notes, so that you guys can get a really good idea of what this mouth percussion actually sounds like. I'm going to go ahead and, rather than route it directly in from the sequencer, I'm going to go ahead and route that into the mutes module again, so that we'll be able to have control of turning this track on and off. Now we just need a way to hear this back. Again, this is mouth percussion that I sampled off of a live stream video from WMD Devices. And so just gotta turn that on then. Okay. Almost. Cool. Now, here's the cool thing about the Rample, guys. Turn some more of these tracks off. Cool. So the bass and the chord are still going, that's fine. But what I want you to listen to, let me turn this, actually I can turn that down, is how the percussion here is just changing and evolving. And we're not doing anything. All I'm doing is just triggering some 16th notes. But because I'm triggering, let's see how many, I wrote it down. But because there's 6 different mouth percussion samples, and we're triggering those randomly, we get this really interesting sort of, you know, evolving and, you know, random playback of that sound. Okay. Now I can see here on the tonal balance control that something is a little bit out of whack, and I'm guessing that it's going to be the high frequency content from these new mouth percussion samples. It absolutely is. And I can, there's a built-in filter on the Spark Rample, so we can kind of filter these. What let's do is let's see if we can assign some modulation to this. Let's see if we can assign on sample, whoops. Sample 4, I want the filter. No, I'm not exactly sure how to do this anymore, so I'm going to pass today. That would have been cool though. All right. So we'll just leave those filters down, and I think I'll probably bring them down in the mix a little bit, just so that they're layering nicely in the background. So we've got our mouth percussion, we've got our noise percussion, and we've got our ride cymbal, all helping to fill out the higher frequency content of the mix now, and also to provide that rhythm, that, you know, interest in the groove. Hey, Lee. Yes, the hardware is definitely a preference over a necessity. Absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely recommend to anyone who is interested in Eurorack at all to check out either VCV-Rack as a program for desktop or MyRack as a program for iPad. Both of those programs are free programs and allow you to get into the world of modular in a virtual way and check it out and start playing with some modules that are even based on real-world modules, like the line of modules from Mutable Instruments is in those pieces of software, so that you can play with the braids module, and you can play with like the clouds module and the rings module, all those really fun modules from Mutable Instruments. Oh, right. I've got 145 clap samples loaded onto a sample card in the Tip Top Audio 1 sampler. Let's go ahead and get a clap in here, kind of a, you know, to offset the fact that we're just pumping this kick drum the whole time. Maybe route this in here. And I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and use a golden shower sequencer from Mazatron to sequence this clap. So we just need to send that sequencer our main clock signal as well as our reset signal. And then I just need to stop and start our sequencer so that all of our modules are in time and know when the downbeat is. Now the third Mazatron golden shower sequencer here is in time with the first two. And let's see here. I'm going to want to put a just going to go ahead and put the rhythm in that I want for the clap here. And I think that's cool. Now we can go ahead and trigger that clap. And actually, rather than, we'll do the same thing that we did with the other tracks for rhythm. Rather than routing the sequencer directly into the module, we're going to go ahead and route the sequencer into the DivKids mutes module so that I'll have control over this clap and be able to turn it on and off. Go ahead and route this now into the, whoa! Let's get that one more step forward. Cool. Now what we can do, move the camera just a tiny little bit here, is I can actually scroll through the samples that are on this card. These are just clap samples from my sample libraries that I've loaded onto the card here. There's everything from, you know, really heavy techno claps to some lighter, more chilled claps. In fact, I think this one, this really light one here, will work really well for what we're looking for today. In fact, let's see if I can move the camera just a tiny little bit closer to the screen and show you how well we're actually doing here on the, well, I can't really change the angle, but we're doing really well on the tonal balance control, all things considered. One of the production challenges that I've been facing working with Eurorack is there's not typically a lot of equalization modules happening. So to sculpt your sound, you're using more like filters and whatnot. I did pick a very special mixer, the Vivaco Hex Mix, and this does have a high, a mid, and a low EQ for 6 channels that I plug into it. But the other mixers that I have and the modules in general do not have an EQ. So if we're able to dial our frequency spectrum and get it relatively decent looking, I'd say we're definitely doing a pretty solid job. I keep getting my headphones wrapped around the mic stand. Sorry about that, guys. We can also tune the sounds from the module, so we can, you know, detune it a lot if we want. But I just find that sort of the last step to seeding a sound in the mix is definitely playing with the tuning. And I suggest this in like a DAW like Ableton or in any box that you're working with. When you load a sound, like a drum sound specifically, even if it sounds good right off the jump, play with that tuning ever so subtly, and you'll be surprised if maybe a semitone or two either direction might actually really lock it into the mix in a way that you didn't hear originally. I'm really happy with the way that that snare is adding some groove to the mix. And I think what we'll do is we'll see if we can add another chord, maybe a short staccato chord, doing some sort of a rhythmic pattern here. What I've got is I've got some chord stabs in the key of F minor that are loaded into the second one sample module from Tip Top Audio. And so I think we'll go ahead and try to see if we can't find something there that we can trigger and get in key with the rest of our track here. I'm going to go ahead and send, I think we'll use my 4th Mazatron Golden Shower sequencer to try to trigger a pattern for this next chord sound. So we're going to go ahead and send our main clock signal to that sequencer so that it knows what our tempo is. We're also going to need to send it our reset signal. And once I've patched the reset signal in, we just need to stop and start the clock so that it knows when the downbeat is. Fantastic. Now, all 4 Golden Shower sequencers are locked in time, and they all know what the tempo is, and they all know what the downbeat is. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and take an output from the sequencer, and let's run that into the DivKids mute module so that I'll be able to turn this sequence that's going to trigger these chords. I'll be able to turn that on and off. So we'll take it out from the DivKids mutes module, and we're going to plug that in to the Tip Top 1 that's got the chords in it. We're going to take it out from that. I'm going to take a splitter cable this time. Let's Let's run that over here for now. Start getting this in the mix. See if we can't find something. Cool. I'm just scrolling through samples that are on the card now. I've got 42 different chord samples on the card, and I'm just scrolling through to see if anything kind of jumps out at us. Like this right here. I think we can start working with that right away. Trying to tuck that back in the mix a little bit. So basically that's giving us just yet another little piece of rhythm. See if I can mute some tracks so we can focus in on what that sounds like. Just giving us kind of a interesting little percussion sort of sound in the background, but it's sort of a melodic percussion because that's a really tight chord stab. I want to mess with the tuning on that ride cymbal again. Cool. We also have a filter built into the rample that I can use to high pass the frequencies of this ride. Maybe high pass it all the way out. But I can get it to sit right where I want it and sculpt how much of the low frequencies are coming through or not coming through on that ride cymbal. I think that sounds a lot cleaner. What let's do is, like, there's reverb already on the chord stab loops that we're playing here, but let's see if maybe we can get it a little bit more dramatic. I really like my dub techno grooves to have as much reverb as possible, and I've been using the Desmodus Versio reverb from Noise Engineering, and I find that without really much energy put into it at all, it sort of leaves a trail of like a reverb, sort of like a sonic tone through the mix. You can really get that set up easily. And like if we can maybe add a little bit more life and a little bit more texture to our main chords, that might be really awesome. Let's start this subtly here. What I want to do, chord samples are running here. Let's see. I think I want to take a couple of splitters and run those, our chord samples, into these, and then allowing me to get a second destination to where we're routing these chord samples. Let's see if this works. So I've got it set up now to where our chord samples are just coming through how they were originally, but now I've got an extra output to send the chord sound anywhere else in the case that I would like to. And what let's do is go ahead and send it to the Desmodus Versio reverb using these extra sends that I've created for us with the splitters. I've got a mixer next to the reverb module so that I can run multiple things into the reverb if I want to. So I'm routing this into that mixer. Got a lot of cable spaghetti today happening. All right. And now what we're going to be hearing is we're going to be hearing two different versions of the chord sounds. We're going to be hearing the original dry signal, but we're also now into the mix with a version of the chords that's going through the Desmodus Versio reverb. And if you listen carefully, if you can't hear that, put your headphones on. We're already getting a completely different vibe. These chords are now, I'd say, probably about double the size that they were before, because this reverb from the Desmodus Versio is huge. And we can dial that back. We have control over the volume that we're sending of these chords to the reverb, and we have control over the volume of the dry signal of these chords. So we can get as much or as little reverb on these as we want. We can go nuts if we want and really crank it up. We're going to dial it back quite a bit. But something like this, giving those chords an extra layer and drenching them in the reverb, helps put those chords as the focus of the mix and not something that's behind the mix. That verb is nice, right, Ed? I do actually have the Strymon. I'm actually using the Big Sky in the set that I'm, the Strymon the Strymon Big Sky reverb pedal. I'm actually using that in the live show that I'm going to be doing on Halloween, and I really love that pedal as well. It allows you to do like 40 to 50 second, reverbs or whatnot, the Blue Sky, and you can literally hit like a sound and send it to the reverb and then kind of leave the room for a while. Go get some coffee and come back and there's still kind of like a reverb trail in the air. I love that kind of stuff. The Desmodus Versio does the same kind of thing. This is really glassy, right? Now that we've got this beat kind of rocking along now and some more components into this, I'm feeling like my bass line is kind of lousy and not very groovy per se. So I think this might be a good opportunity to try to redo the bass line now that we've got some more elements that we can actually use to create something with. Let's try something more like that. 4. Whoops, that's not what I want. Clear that out and try again. We've got a bass line that's a little bit more forward momentum driving and a little bit more groovy. Let's see here. I'm also running a plugin called Mixed in Key. Yeah, that's what I thought. It doesn't really sound like we're 100% in key per se, And I think that we're a little bit off key. Whoops, sorry about the clack there. I think I'll just take 1 second and see if we can't double check the tuning on our bass sound. In fact, I can kind of see that right here. There we go. That's a little bit better. It's probably going to click a little bit in 3, 2, now, sorry. Yeah, I still didn't get that bass line quite where I would like it to be. But that's what happens when you're doing this in a live stream. I'm not going to take, 30 minutes and try to get the perfect bass line. But that's exactly what I would do if I was just programming. I would spend a lot more time on that. In fact, maybe, not happy with this bass line. What if we go something really simple like that? Just really, really simple. Just go with that for a bit. I'm just not happy with that bass sound. It's a little better. That's really what all of this stuff is kind of like the main, I don't know, like, I don't want to say difficulty, but the main challenge is really keeping everything sort of together and vibing together. You can find that when you turn a certain track off, you get a different, really different vibe in the groove. I thought turning the bass up might be the right idea, but the tonal balance control is telling me otherwise. Really, really useful. Alright, not bad. Hey Lee, thanks for joining me. Earth Modular Society also has a live session going on. Alright! Now I'm missing it. I'd love to be watching that. I'm trying to think if we want to try to add anything else today. Any other elements to this groove. We've got two different chord samples that are kind of playing off each other. I'm still not super happy with that bass, but it is what it is. Mess with the kick drum a little bit more. Ooh, that's nice. Maybe mess with the pitch on that ride again. Ooh, there it is. Sometimes when you're tuning the sounds, you'll know right away. It just kind of locks, and you just kind of get that. Oh, wait a minute. Let me bring that back. Ooh, yeah, we're running a really even tonal balance control curve. Basically what that means is we're putting out the proper amount of low frequency content, of mid frequency content, and of high frequency content, like these ride cymbals. Got some modulation happening on a lot of these sounds to keep them just a little bit interesting in the mix. Tuck that rhyme back a little more. Bring this reverb up a little more, maybe a lot more. Cool. All right. Well, we've been streaming for about an hour and a half. Pretty happy with this groove. What I would do if I wasn't streaming is I would just finesse this a little bit. I would probably spend some more time and maybe figure out what's bugging me with this bass sound. Maybe I would try to fix that or make it less bugging. Just tuck that bass down a little bit with a filter. Get it way down in there so it's not conflicting with the chords so much. Maybe that's what I was looking for. Just to tuck it way back there so it's not quite as prevalent. And that gives the chords more space to breathe. Yeah, that's a lot better. Yeah, that's fun. All right. Do we keep going and try to add something else to this today? I think maybe we could try to add another element to this. Maybe what we could do is I've got the Audio Thingies Micro Monster synthesizer here. Maybe we could bring this into the mix today. I can route that into the Strymon AA1 module, which is a module from Strymon that allows you to send signals out of the case to like guitar pedals, and then signals from those guitar pedals back into the case. But what I'm using is I'm just using a headphone adapter to take the main outs from the Audio Thingies Micro Monster into a stereo in on the Strymon AA1 module here, and then we can just plug this. Where can I plug this today? Are we out of inputs? Almost. I think I can squeeze one more in here, and let's try. Let's try to squeeze this in. Let's definitely try to squeeze this in. We might be able to get something really fun here. We're gonna go out into this here, and then out into this here, and this should allow us to hear the Audio Thingies Micro Monster now. I'm gonna change the camera a little bit, because I'm going to be controlling it with the sequencer for a few. Currently, we're already controlling it with the sequencer, so that's cool. All right. Kind of just vibing that for a second. Sorry about that. Actually, it's almost cool right there, isn't it? Since it's already playing some MIDI, I wonder if we can just scroll through a different program. Let's find out. No, it's going to be the same one there. Okay, looking for some kind of an arpeggio maybe might be cool. But it doesn't really show in the menu. Okay, there we go. Alright, let's load that. That's cool. I'm gonna bring the filter cutoff on this way down and the resonance way down as well, so we can just tuck it back in the mix. Maybe if I turn the volume down on our original bass and we check out what just this sounds like. It's not quite genre appropriate maybe, but it still sounds kind of neat. Ooh, all right. Cool. Yeah, you said it, Ed. If only one Eventide plugin, it would definitely be the Black Hole Reverb. I couldn't agree with that more. Absolutely fantastic stuff from Eventide. Really, really unique. And they have that, always have that little something in the Eventide plugins that strikes me as something unexpected, maybe. When I'm looking for that traditional bread and butter stuff, it's not typically where I'm going to go, is the Eventide. When I'm looking for that creative edge, I'm going to go to the Eventide plugins for sure. That's kind of cool. So we've replaced our bass sound. Just a completely different vibe with the bass coming out of the Audio Thingies Micro Monster. More of a trance bass, really, and probably not super appropriate, but fun for the live stream for sure. All right. Well, I think we're probably going to call it today. If anyone has any music-related questions whatsoever, now would be a great time to get those in at the end of the stream here. Doesn't have to be Eurorack related. As you can see, I also work with DAWs on the computer as well, and lots of different hardware in here, and iPads. This is a fun little groove, all right. Well, I'm not really having a problem with everything being in sync. I was going to show the black stereo delay from Erica Devices in the beginning of the stream, but I actually got sidetracked and completely spaced out on that. Let's see here. I don't know. It sounds pretty nice the way we got it. The bass isn't quite... So that's sort of two basses, two bass lines, two bass sounds that I'm not super happy with this week. I don't know, but I really like that extra reverb on the chords. There we go. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be continuing playing with the MyRack app for the iPad, and I definitely want to experiment with combining that with the actual real-world system. There's just really not enough hours in the day to be able to do everything that I want to do, especially lately because I've been working on this Halloween set with literally every spare second of my time. Over an hour was, I mean, really, I'm not necessarily into setting up like an 8-bar jam per se, and then like I'm just gonna jam this and we'll see what happens. For live stuff, I'm more about taking the time to do a lot of programming out as to like what is going to happen, and I've really been putting in the hours there, so I just haven't had like near enough hours to get back to all the iPad stuff that I would like to. The last time I did check in with MyRack though, it's looking fantastic, and they've done some updates that are really impressive and lots of fun new modules in there as well to play with. So it's definitely something that I want to do in the future, is see what we can do with combining the two together for sure. Yeah, I haven't used that Ableton link with MyRack yet. Has that been giving you a hard time? Is that not working as expected? Because that would be a bummer. It'd be awesome if it worked right off the gate as expected. That's a bummer. I know that they put a module in my rack that specifically is compatible with a specific module here. It's the Expert Sleepers ES9 module. And what that is a way for MIDI and CV to communicate to each other. And if I'm not mistaken, they've literally recreated that module inside of the MyRack app, which in some way would allow you to say, plug in CV signals and then route those signals directly into MyRack and I think back out again. Unfortunately, that Expert Sleepers ES9 module is a very expensive module, and that's not the one that I went with for my MIDI and CV. I went with the Poly-IND Poly 2 module to get MIDI to talk to CV. So while it's still on some levels compatible, maybe not as awesome as it would have been if I had the Expert Sleepers ES9 MIDI to CV module. Because I think the compatibility with that and my rack is like well, I really appreciate everyone joining me, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me till this very last bit here. Definitely want to stress again, please set aside some time on Halloween next Saturday to check out this live show that I've been putting together. If you miss it on the live stream, you'll definitely be able to catch it on the replay. And I'm not exactly sure when my time slot is going to be yet. I believe my show will probably be around like 1 to 2 in the afternoon. Pacific Standard Time. I'm here in California. So I think it's going to be sometime between like noon, 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. What I'm doing is I'm doing a 20-minute set for a 3-day online music festival called Clown Fest. And that stream is going to, that's going to be a live stream as well. But the gentleman who's running that stream is going to be able to take my live stream from my YouTube channel and then just transfer that and, put that into his live stream. So I'll be going live on my channel for that show specifically, but I figured, hey, it's Halloween, why not just put on a full-length show on my channel instead of just a 20-minute set for the festival that I'm doing. And so that's why it's turned into such a long and big project. I'm going to hopefully get another patch put together inside of the modular, and I'm hoping to get a little bit of the modular inside of that show as well. But for those of you who missed the beginning, I just want to show how much work I've been doing, putting in the hours, getting ready for that. I've got the Akai Force out, and I'll be opening the Halloween set with like a 30-minute dub techno set using the Akai Force and the Roland SPD SX drum pad. And then I've got another station over here with the Digitact, with the Roland TR8S, with the vintage Yamaha SU700 sampling groove box, with the vintage Revolution 309 from Quasar MIDI, an Novation circuit, and a DJ mixer to tie it all together. And then over here, I've got another station with on the top 2 Electron model samples, another Electron Digitact, a Digitone, the Poly-IND tracker, the MAM MB33 retro bass, which is a 303 clone, and the Rat distortion pedal, which I'm running the 303 through, so we can get some pretty nasty distortion on the 303 clone. Anyhow, I really appreciate everyone joining me today, and I will be doing these Eurorack Patch Labs every Sunday, Pacific Standard Time at 10 a.m. We did a little dub techno today because I love the dub. There's going to be a lot more genres on the Halloween show. It's going to be some drum and bass and some up-tempo stuff as well. Even though we're starting with 30 minutes of dub techno, if the down-tempo stuff isn't really your bag, there'll be something in that show for you as well. Don't worry. Oh yeah, good idea, Beachbine. I will definitely put a pinned comment under this live stream as to when that show is going to be, when the live stream will be. Again, if you're following me on social media, I'm on Facebook at Electrona Sounds. I'm on Instagram as Electrona Sounds. I'm on Twitter as Electrona Sounds. Patreon as Electrona Sounds. So I'll be posting the showtime once I get my scheduled time slot. I'll be posting it on those social media platforms as well. Yeah, it's going to be all kinds of artists in this festival. It's a 3-day festival, actually, online festival that I'm taking part of. If you're interested in checking out the full live stream shows, there's going to be like 70 artists, lots of techno. There's other genres as well. There's some other drum and bass artists that are really phenomenal. It's the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st of October. It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on YouTube, and it's also going to be on Twitch, I believe. Um, if you just go on Facebook and you search Clownfest 3, you will probably find the group. In that group, there's going to be like where the actual live stream will be taking place on Facebook. Again, that's Clownfest 3. If you want to be a part of the Facebook group, checking that out. Next Saturday, Halloween, is my slot, but there's 2 full days of performers on the 29th and on the 30th. Lots of different genres, and it's really, really, really going to be a fun festival. I would say if you've got some time on, that weekend, definitely check that out on Facebook and see if you can get joined up with that group so you can catch 3 days of live stream performances. Alrighty, we're definitely going to call it. I appreciate everyone joining me today. I'll check one more time for questions. Thanks, Wall. All right. I appreciate everyone sticking around for the Dub Techno. It didn't go quite the way that I expected, and these live streams never do, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm going to keep doing these, because not only does it help me learn the system, but it also helps me kind of learn to roll with the changes when things don't go as expected for me. I appreciate you all being here, and until next time, thanks for watching.